All right, let's journey back in time. We're going to explore a place that wasn't really defined by borders, but by water. Today, we're diving into ancient Bengal, the River Kingdom.
So before we can even get into the history, we got to ask a really basic question, right? What is Bengal?
Take a look at this old European map. What's the one thing that just jumps out at you? It's all rivers, right? And that's the key. Historically, Bengal's whole identity was just as fluid, just as interconnected as this massive web of water.
So, you got to get this in your head. Bengal wasn't some fixed place with hard lines on a map. Think of it more as a conceptual space. It's this whole area that's totally built around the great rivers, like the Ganges, all flowing down into the Bay of Bengal. Honestly, this geography, it's the key to understanding the entire story.
Okay, so you have this land made of rivers. How does that give rise to a civilization? Let's dig into how those first settlements got started.
So why here, of all places? What was the big draw? Well, for starters, the rivers were like the highways of the ancient world. They were the backbone of the whole region. And all that water made the land incredibly fertile. We're talking amazing crops. And here's the bottom line. If you have a place with guaranteed food, people are going to show up. It's just human nature. And boy, did they show up. The growth was fast. You know, by around 2000 BCE, you've got these communities growing rice all along the riverbanks. But then, flash forward just 1,000 years, and those small villages have exploded into these big, complex urban centers. They were called the Mahajanapadas.
And look, this isn't just some dusty old theory. This is real. What you're seeing is the actual excavation site of Wari Bidishwar. This place is almost 2,500 years old. It was one of those first major settlements, a buzzing river port, a hub for trade. You can almost feel the history there.
Well, when you have a region that's growing and prosperous like this, it's not going to stay a secret for long, right? Bigger powers start to notice. And that brings us to the next part of our story, the great empires, and how Bengal suddenly found itself connected to a much bigger world.
So for the first time ever, you start seeing these massive empires that unify almost the entire Indian subcontinent. You can see on the left, there's the Kingdom of Magadha, which eventually becomes the giant Mauryan Empire. And then later, on the right, you've got the Gupta Empire, which was even bigger. And for Bengal, this was a total game changer. Suddenly, it's plugged into this huge political and cultural network.
So what did that actually look like on the ground? Well, the Mauryans built the legendary Grand Trunk Road. Think of it as an ancient superhighway for trade, connecting everything like never before. Their famous emperor Asoka also helped Buddhism spread throughout the region. And then, the Guptas came along and set up a really organized system of government. With all that stability, art and sculpture just flourished.
And all that peace and connection led to something else, incredible centers of learning. I mean, look at this. This is Nalanda University. The Guptas built it, and it was one of the world's very first residential universities, a true beacon of knowledge for the entire ancient world. Absolutely amazing.
But here's the thing about empires. They never last forever, do they? After the Guptas fell, there was this huge power vacuum, chaos. But it was out of that chaos that Bengal started to forge its own, truly unique identity. In fact, you could call this its golden age.
But yeah, that golden age was born from fire. The time right after the empires collapsed has a name, Matsanyaya. It literally means the law of the fish. It's such a brutal, perfect description, isn't it? A time of total anarchy where the big fish just eat the little fish. The strong devour the weak.
So how do you pull yourself out of a nosedive like that? Well, it happened step by step. Local dynasties, names like the Palas, the Senas, the Chandras, they started to rise up. They brought back stable government. They got smart about using those rivers for trade, which brought in a ton of wealth. And here's the crucial part. They fostered religious harmony. And that mix created the perfect soil for unique Bengali culture to just bloom. And we can actually see the proof of this new identity. Check this out. It's a silver coin from the 7th century, from the reign of a king named Shashanka. This guy was a big deal. He's the one credited with creating the very first Bengali calendar, the Bang Babdo.
And it wasn't just calendars. The identity was literally being written down. These are the Charyapada manuscripts. They are some of the earliest examples we have of the Bengali language being written down. They're filled with these mystical songs and poems about everyday life. I mean, this is the very beginning of Bengali literature right here. The era was also producing some seriously brilliant minds. This is a depiction of Atish Dipankar. He was a Bengali scholar and philosopher, and
He wasn't just known locally, he was world-class. In fact, his reputation was so huge that the king of Tibet personally invited him to come and teach Buddhism in Tibet. That's how respected he was.
But if you want one image to sum up the incredible legacy of this golden age, this is it, the Somapura Mahavihara. It was this gigantic monastery and learning center built by the Pala dynasty. It's so important that it's now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's just a stunning testament to what they were able to achieve, both architecturally and intellectually.
But the story doesn't stop there. Of course not. History is always moving, always changing, and a new, powerful current was about to enter the river. In our last section, let's look at how a new faith arrived and how it kicked off the next great chapter for Bengal.
And I think this quote from historian Willem van Schendel just says it perfectly. He writes that into this complex world, Islam entered in two different ways. First, it came peacefully, carried along by the sea trade that had been going on for centuries. But then it came a second way, by land, as the religion of powerful invaders. A totally new and profound current had just merged with the river of Bengal's history.
And that brings us right back to where we began, doesn't it? We saw how this land's very geography, all those rivers, shaped its physical destiny. So it kind of leaves you with one big question to think about. If a land can be so completely shaped by its rivers, then how are its people shaped by those powerful, ever-flowing currents of history?